Back on MorningLine, it's our final segment with the Killer Queens hosts. It's their podcast on true crime. It's just really interesting to have them on to talk to them about this on Halloween, no less.
I know.
Just about how this has taken off, and there are so many terrific true crime podcasts out there, but yours, are there any true crime podcasts out there hosted by sisters? Do you know?
I don't. Well,
I mean, are there some?
I did hear one of our listeners has just started a podcast with her sister, so.
Okay.
Oh, yes,
so maybe
yeah.
you have given people ideas. I mean, look, whether it's to women, to men, sisters, brothers, I don't care. It all comes down to whether or not you have chemistry on the air and that you bring good information that's interesting to people.
Right.
And that's so. What do you think the trick is? I mean, you can go through all these court documents and dig up the facts, but if you're just reading it, rote or something like this,
Right.
what is it? You kind of. How often will you offer opinions? I mean, okay. So, okay, you already have on this show, but I mean, that's part of it. And maybe not everyone will agree, but a lot of times you're offering opinions after the fact, after someone's convicted, like he did this. Well, okay, of course he's convicted. Will you sometimes go on and say, well, I look at the evidence here, I know he's convicted, but I'm not so sure?
Yes, yeah, we have definitely done that. And I mean, I think another thing that kind of sets our show apart is that it is a lighter approach to it. And we will use our sense of humor as we tell the stories, never about a victim or their family or
anything like that. Not to be disrespectful. Yeah, you guys take it as serious, but I know what you mean. It's more of a casual conversation, like sitting around the table talking with your father.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like our whole kind of vibe that we were going for was like, we want you to feel like you're part of the conversation, that you're sitting around with your friends talking about a case. It's the same kind of feel to it.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it interesting to listen to. It's different. Let's go to Thomas. Thomas, good morning. Hi, Thomas.
Hey, good morning. I would like for them to comment more on the Holly Bobo thing, because the ball was dropped big time on that one. And the Lindsay Lowe, is that her name?
Yes.
When I first heard about that she gave birth to those children on the toilet. Is that true?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, that was to the I'll let you comment. As far as Lindsay Lowe, yeah, she had hid her pregnancy throughout the entire pregnancy. No one knew she was pregnant. She had had an affair when she was engaged to someone else and didn't want anyone to know, and she just hid it. No one knew. And then and there had to be some psychological issues here. And she went into labor, and she was on the toilet, and the twins came out into the toilet. And the allegation is that she covered their mouths to try to keep them from crying so the family wouldn't hear it, and that she smothered them. And she was convicted of that. And she gave kind of a confession that was accepted that might have been coerced, but the judge allowed it to stand. But she's going to get a whole new trial, and there was a lot of, I think, mistakes made by her defense attorney. There's no question what she did was wrong.
Right.
The debate will be at the new trial whether or not it was first-degree murder, which she was convicted of,
Correct.
or perhaps a lesser crime, considering her state of mind, what happened here, just how messed up that whole thing is. So that's that. As far as, okay, so you know about the Bobo case, and we talked about it during one of the breaks, and that you have done a segment on that. There was question that there were other suspects.
Right.
Okay, we know Zach Adams was convicted, and he said that maybe in some ways the investigation was botched, which there were mistakes made. He's not wrong. What do you guys think about that one? I don't know how long ago you did that one, if you call much of it.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I remember after reading over everything, well, first of all, being so blindly enraged by Jason Autry. Just, you know,
Jason Autry. Yeah, enraged. And he was the ace witness for the prosecution against Zach Adams. I mean, you have to dance with the devil sometimes to get something, and the prosecutors decided, to me, he's every bit as responsible for Holly Bobo's death as Zach Adams.
Yes.
Zach's doing life. Jason Autry keeps messing up when he gets out of prison, but he's back behind bars on other charges.
Right.
But he got a slap on the wrist for Holly Bobo. And in my opinion, he's every bit as guilty as Zach Adams.
Exactly.
I'm with you.
And the information they got from him is that it got a conviction on Zach Adams, but did it really, because he changed his story how many times, what was really the benefit of that? Because now there are questions in the case, if you play it that way and you don't have the weekend Monday morning quarterback or whatever they call it all day long, we're obviously not investigators, but if you're going to use the testimony of a known liar.
That's
How
what we
credible
talked
is
about.
that? Yes.
But that happens. That's what's so amazing. I mean, he is. You just hit it. Blatant liar. Lied to me. Before I did interviews with him before he stood trial, and everything he said there, he lied. Somewhere he either lied in court or he lied to me, and I figure he probably lied both times.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, when liars are used to convict, and sometimes that's part of the piece. But he was the ace witness. Now I don't know. Do you think? I mean, there was talk that there might have been some other, suspects, known sex offenders in the area, things like this. I've just never. I don't know.
And nobody ever, from what we've read, nobody ever turned up any evidence that pointed to these other people.
Right.
There was
Nothing
no
hard enough to
connection
go.
or anything.
Right.
Yeah. So but it is unfortunate when you look at a conviction like that because, we've talked about this, there are wrongful convictions. There are, things that happen like that, and that should never happen. But when you leave holes in the case, you're opening a door for a defense attorney to come along and get a retrial and possibly have somebody walk away, not guilty. Because once you get a not guilty, you're done. You cannot, that's it.
Right.
So you've got to have your case put together.
Yep.
And
no,
it
I
has
agree.
to stand.
And I personally think Zach Adams did it, and I followed it fairly closely. But they're appealing. They're appealing. I don't know all the grounds. I've got the document on what they're appealing for, so he could maybe down the road get another trial. But that's the other thing too. When they leave those openings, and then years later, like the Lindsay Lowe case, if they're going to retry it, that was 9, 10. That was 11 years ago. The crime was committed. 9 years ago, she was convicted, and she spent the last 9 years behind bars. Now she's out of jail, and there may not be another trial for another 2 years.
Right.
So you're talking about almost 15 years have passed.
Right.
You have to get together all the witnesses again, if they're all alive, if they're all even around,
Right.
redig the evidence. It's for her. I think it's going to make it very difficult for the prosecution.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And you literally never know what a jury is going to do. You
That's
just
right.
don't know. Look at Casey Anthony.
Oh,
Yeah.
dear God.
And now she's just out.
Yep.
That woman, I wake up in the morning and I'm mad at her.
I was going to say, I was having a good day, and then you had to
I
bring
know, I brought her up.
you
I
know?
brought her up. Yeah. It's just like, and you just never know what a jury is going to do. So every time you open the door for a retrial, it's like.
I agree. Have either of you ever been on a jury or been called to jury duty?
I've been called to jury duty, but I had a job that I was I was the owner of the salon, so I was like, I couldn't.
They excused you.
They excused me.
Because I would
Yeah.
think, if you could make, I've never been called even. I would love to be on a jury.
I know.
I was excited. but
From the sense of, I would love to experience it and see it. I've watched Vodire, which is the jury selection, and I've watched plenty of juries in action. But I think I'd be very good. I think I could be impartial. I don't know. Maybe, it seems like
Right.
people in the TV news business, if they're called, don't always get selected. Because you have this podcast, I would bet they would dismiss you.
Yes,
But I'm just
100%,
guessing.
yeah.
I would think you both would be very fair.
Well, and that's one thing that is another kind of goal that we have for the podcast that we didn't have when we
yes.
started, but is producing better, well-informed jurors because,
Nobody teaches you.
Nobody teaches. Before we started this, we thought if you got a lawyer, it meant you were good. Why would you need a lawyer if you're innocent, right? Now we say it now. If you ever have to talk to the police, get a lawyer. I
Yeah.
don't care if you did anything or didn't do anything. Like, you
Right.
should have a lawyer
Lawyer up,
because
yep.
they're trained to get confessions, and they're just waiting for somebody as stupid as me to walk in and.
Well, that's right.
talk.
If your husband were to disappear, you are number one suspect right off the bat.
Exactly.
With not a shred of evidence, and I understand, the cops are
Right.
right. You would be the number one suspect. And I'm sure if your husband disappeared, you would want to do everything you could to cooperate. But at the same time, you might want to have a lawyer there. If only, now a lot of people say, oh, if she has nothing to hide, why is she hiring a lawyer?
Right.
And you're right. You need to let the public know. It's not a sign of guilt that you hire an attorney. It's
Right.
that these days that under the stress or whatever, these cops are under a lot of pressure to try to solve a case. And if you say the wrong things, maybe all of a sudden the spotlight turns to you, so you do that. Hiring a lawyer is not a sign of guilt.
No.
Okay, it's a sign of, I just want to play it safe, especially in this day and age, right?
Yes,
Absolutely.
100%.
Well, and there are so many other things in addition to that, but you can be too emotional. You can be not emotional enough.
Well, you're right, and people tend to judge juries, don't they? You were saying earlier, Al,
100%.
you observe the way someone behaves on the stand, and again, I've seen people who have lost children that are laughing
Yes.
Meaning laughing, meaning it's their nervous reaction when I'm
course,
interviewing
of
them.
course,
They're torn apart, but it's laughter that's coming out, or giggles. And I realize they're just out of their head with grief.
Yes.
And I've seen others that cry. I don't judge them on their reaction in a time of a horrible thing.
Yeah,
Everyone
you can't.
acts different. You can never, but people do sometimes.
do.
What's she laughing for? Well, she's laughing because she's totally out of her head with grief.
You have to look at somebody's history too, and how have they historically reacted to trauma. What have
Right.
they? You know, there's so many things that go into like somebody's reaction to a horrific event. Like some people are just stoic
Yeah, exactly.
and they have no reaction.
See, I think that's another great thing about your podcast as we wrap things up. I hope people check it out. It just raises awareness, talks about these very things we're just talking about. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
But this whole show was really interesting talking to you both.
Oh,
and
thank
I just recommend everyone check out the Killer Queens podcast. Okay, give it a listen. And if you like one, there's 500 others out there, and you guys are going to keep doing this as long as you can, right?
Yes.
We are.
Well, keep it up. We'll see how it evolves. Really appreciate you both coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again. I'll be back to wrap things up right after this.